Indeed, and moving forward, we're going to be seeing another great match. It's going to be Mage taking on Ant in our second quarterfinal. So Admirable, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Any predictions moving forward? Which player would you do you think is going to have the better chance of moving on?
I think on paper that Ant's lineup is a little bit favored, but after watching Mage play his match against Colento, he certainly had a blunder in game number 1 where he just simply lost focus and didn't realize his rope was burning. But afterwards, again, he showed mastery of those long-term game plans and what it takes to overcome a bad matchup. If he continues to play that way, I think Ant could be in a bit of trouble here.
All right, well, it's time for the second quarterfinal of the day. And introducing the first player from New Zealand, please welcome to the stage, it's Mage. And his opponent, a mare's race on the line for him, it's Ant.
Quarterfinal number 2. Mage versus Ant.
It feels great to win, feels great to go to championships. Hopefully, beating Colento, it's like one of my big accomplishments.
Being here in China, one step away from the top 4. How does it feel right now? I kind of want to throw up. Honestly, like if I'm honest, I kind of want to throw up. But besides that part, feels great.
So playing against Ant, I feel more confident now, honestly, because he brought aggro, I was targeting aggro. I feel confident going into it, I think I can beat him.
I have to play Mage in the quarterfinals, and I know he's a really good player. So, I mean, he's going to be tough. He's not going to make very much mistakes.
There's no room for nice guys. In Hearthstone, you just beat your opponent, the better player wins, right?
Mage versus Ant. Let's do this!
And we are ready to go with series number 2 of the day. It is going to be Mage versus Ant. I'm Raven, and joining me is Soto. And I think, for me, the main story of this series is a clashing of styles.
Very much so, lineup-wise and even playstyle-wise, personality-wise as well, honestly. But the first thing we have to flag up, in case you haven't been following us, every single game today, the winner is going through to the World Championship. So that is the stakes laid out for you first and foremost. This is a win and in game for both of these players. Both have their own motivations beyond that for wanting to be successful in Hearthstone. But as you said, a styles clash. Aggro-heavy lineup from Ant, and Mage has kind of anti-aggro control decks. So your opinions on this series really come down to where you fall on the spectrum of control versus aggro.
Yeah.
Because classically in Hearthstone, it's been a card game where you can kind of break the dynamic, and aggro decks actually defeat control decks quite often. But a lot of players are feeling that now this is the meta game where control can shine. Yeah. Freeze Mage ban, that's what we called backstage for on Mage's side.
Yeah, we made the guess that the Freeze Mage was going to be the ban. The aggro deck's a bit more loose to play with, but Power Warrior is going to be removed for Ant. But what's really going to stick out to me, and was going to be really interesting to see this match develop, is we've seen Mage play a few times now. He excels at the long games, the awkward decisions, the high-level plays. Is Ant going to give him the time to even get to that moment in any given game?
Yeah.
You know, the longer the game goes on, the more resources Mage has to deal with. That is when you fear this guy. But Ant's playing full aggro. These games can be over in a matter of turns where Mage won't have that chance to use, I think, his strongest trait, to be completely honest.
And that's the problem with the aggro versus control dynamic. Of course, control is given all the tools to deal with aggro. They have healing and stability and taunt minions and AoE. But the aggro decks are just built to more consistently get an advantage between turns 1 and 4. They do that every game. It's what they're built to do. So if the control deck then whiffs in that period, they cannot even get to those primordial Drake turns or whatever it is that they need to stabilize.
Yep, and we are getting into game number 1. Just one more reminder. This series, World Championships on the line. The winner goes, the loser does not. All this time is left for this moment.
Firefly lead out. from Mage as the Shaman. Lightning Storm in hand is one of the big talking points. We've been having this discussion for quite a long time about people teching for the mirror now in Evolve Shaman because it's perhaps the most powerful deck in the format, but we haven't really seen people try Lightning Storm as a mirror tech.
Genuinely surprised me it's not this long.
And this was really, really confusing to us for a long time. So Mage has actually cut a Maelstrom portal and replaced it with Lightning Storm in his build, which gives him the same kind of little edge in the mirror match that we've seen Sea Giants do for a lot of people. Ant's list actually has no real mirror techs in there. There's no extra AoE and there's no Sea Giants. It's really the 100% original standard variant of Evolve Shaman.
Yeah, I think this is reflective of Ant's style more than anything. He's like, no, I'm going to get them. They have to deal with me.
Sure.
They have to respond to me. And it's on them to defend. Even in the mirror. Because again, the Maelstrom cut for Lightning Storm is a defensive tool, right? You know, it's something that's going to get you ahead in the matchup. One, if you're behind, or two, if it's you know, trying to break an even point.
He has hit one of the biggest cards in the matchup, though, which is Flame Tongue Totem, and that leads him to using one of the other big cards in the early game quite spuriously, just throwing out the Bloodsail Corsair, which can be such a huge tempo swing when it nails a Jade Claws, but he wanted that Patches to get full board control alongside the Flame Tongue Totem. The positioning is a tiny bit awkward, but it was A, necessary because he needed Patches to spawn on that side, and also, this is the side you want exposed if you're going to have one on a Flame Tongue Totem, because your totems just naturally fill that side of the board anyway.
Yeah, Flame Tongue, one of, if not potentially the highest win rate card in this deck overall when in your opening hand, like when played early. And yeah, and already just giving Mage questions on, well, I'm already behind. If I play anything, it dies because of the Flame Tongue trade up potential of all of the minions. And it just feels too early for Lightning Storm, to be honest.
It does, because it's when used in the early game, the mana that you overload as a percentage of your total mana is at its highest, so it's actually the hardest to recover from. But you get a quick look there at Mage's record in a fairly straightforward win early on against Trunks, but that Calento series was perhaps the leading light of this entire tournament so far. It had everything. There was a big mistake from Mage early on, but then he recovered and played some exemplary Hearthstone, even though when we spoke to him afterwards, he still felt like he could have played better.
Yeah, he was like, oh yeah, I don't think I played that well. And we were right. No, you played really well in, you know, a couple of the games. Most of the games, like, no, I didn't.
Yep.
So, well, okay, Mage. You played well enough.
The portal draw is huge, though, for Mage. This is one of the situations where Maelstrom Portal is starting to be a little more appealing, because paired with the Devolve as well, there is, what, 4 1-mana minions and 2 2-mana minions on the board. So that's 4 guaranteed Wisps that die to the Maelstrom Portal, and then any 1-drop that lands with 1 health as well. This can just end up being a really huge swing turn, if not this turn for Mage, then very nearly in the future.
Yeah, the only disappointment I've got is your lack of hugeness of that huge call. Where's Admirable when you need him?
Oh, you've got to know when you're beat. Sometimes you just have to leave it to the Master.
That's fair enough.
My bellows of huge cannot be heard from the Great Wall of China, unlike Nathan.
Or the moon.
The Admiral Zamora.
Okay, well, Mage is just really trying to work out what he wants to commit here. And he's going to go for the Lightning Storm play. He's going to be overloaded for 2 next turn, giving him just a total of 3 mana to work with. Currently, his hand doesn't line up very well with 3 mana, but you'd imagine, you know, Jade Claws looks like the at this moment in time play for the following turn. And now Ant's got the time to decide what he wants to do, but playing much faster. even the speed in turns reflects these players' styles overall. And just going, yep, okay. The guys are playing a mirror match.
Mage just very quickly reached for the Maelstrom Portal there, as if he was going to fire it off just to kill the Flame Tongue Totem. The 0-3 Totem, the 2 of them were the important factor in the last turn's Lightning Storm, because obviously he wanted to roll 3 on both of them. He ended up hitting 1 and missing 1. Hey, that's fine.
Can't argue with that, yeah.
That's how 50-50 works. But it has left that Flame Tongue Totem now awkwardly protected behind that thing from below. A little surprised that Mage is willing to use such an important card, especially when paired with Devolve in hand as Maelstrom Portal, just to take care of this Flame Tongue.
I think this is my issue as well with the Lightning Storm last turn.
I'm kind of with you.
Yeah, obviously there was the kill on the totems, huge if you get both. But what this 3 mana has done, it meant that Mage couldn't even Maelstrom and Totem, which then says, maybe I Bloodlust next turn. You know, and just try and wipe the board. You know, maybe that's the play, the line Mage has to go for. But just being able to do one thing this turn has really, really limited his options, and now Ant can start to do silly, silly things.
He can, and look at the quality of his hand. This is as powerful a hand as you're going to see in this position. You've already got the board. You've got Jade Lightning, which is a huge power swing card. You have Bloodsail Corsair, which is a very useful tech card in the matchup. And then you just have the combo for next turn with Doppelgangster Evolve. So you just need to ensure no accidents are happening in this position, right? Even start planning about keeping 1-mana minions off the board for the follow-up turn so you can't hit that Doomsayer.
Well, on that point...
Go on.
This is... no, you can't, never mind. Doesn't matter.
Are you about to say something silly?
Well, yes. I'll be honest with you, Sol. Yes.
You've got to be a big man and own up to it, though. And speaking of owning up to things, I really liked in Ant's opener.
Oh my god, he's doing the thing I thought was silly.
In his little intro video, he came out and admitted that he was nervous, said that he wanted to throw up. And that actually takes kind of a big man to admit that as well. But this spell damage totem that doesn't exist would have been huge, but it's a big whiff in the end.
So, my initial thought, let's rewind time. Do you, because you don't really want to play 2 1-drops this turn in Totem and Corsair?
Jade Lightning would have been a 1-drop as well if you chose to use that as
true,
well.
Yeah.
Right?
So then you pass in, right? That feels bad even though you're ahead.
Yeah.
Then, do you play the Doppelgangsters? Remember, 1 cut of Maelstrom for 1 Lightning Storm. You've seen the Lightning Storm, so it needs Spell Damage Totem and the Maelstrom to be in hand.
Right.
But then I was thinking about Devolve. How much does that impact the turn? But then it actually doesn't.
No.
So, in a roundabout way, the preemptive Doppelgangster, there was a risk. If spell damage came out there, suddenly this game looks very, very different. And that's what I was personally worried about, and my fear factor of not doing this. But to be honest, otherwise the turn would have kind of been a pass, which is bad.
Right, I'll admit I didn't really even consider this option of the Doppelgangsters hitting the board this time. I didn't really just have the time to evaluate it, but it was really, really risky. And I am very surprised because, you know, the line I came out with and the stance that I really had looking at this board state was, let's just not have any accidents, right? Let's not try to do anything too creative. You're in such a comfortable position right now.
I think with 20 cards left and 1 AoE and 1, you know, and the roll of spell damage, that is a lot to ask. That is a lot to ask.
It is, but you can also just ask nothing. You can just lock your opponent out by not giving them that opportunity in the first place.
Yeah, I guess. Tough one, but let's see what the Evolve gives.
Oh, Stormwind Champion.
Whoa.
Nails it. Round of applause from the excited Chinese crowd.
Yeah. I mean, there's a counter Doppelgangster Evolve. Do you just have to do it?
It's going to go deal. Man, not a massive improvement, to be perfectly honest.
And that's why I genuinely felt like, do you just, like, Jade Claw's Doppelgangster Evolve?
Right.
Sorry, you couldn't do that. Just Doppelgangster Evolve, even. Just because, and say, I hope my 6 drops are good enough to battle on the board with yours.
Hope I just nail some Cairns, some Ayers, some Sunwalkers. Just make it happen.
I'm not even joking. Like, I genuinely think that was a reasonable request there from Mage. But you go for the Devolve and paid off-ish. Ant is low on resources, but suddenly, you know, the Mana Tide just being in hand.
1 off.
It's going to be pretty nice.
Right.
Yeah.
16 goes face.
Yep.
Ant on the cusp of a very, very smooth first win in this position, but Mage is starting just to climb back here. If he can now, perhaps even use his Bloodlust to answer the board state, to trade down evenly, he has the resource advantage after that because he now still has his Doppelgangster Evolve combo.
Yeah, I would actually like as heavy a trade as possible here from Ant.
Yeah.
You stop the return Bloodlust. Also, you do have Mana Tide.
Yeah.
And you were 1 off last turn. You can probably get there if you just trade this time and keep it going. I like this a lot from Ant here.
You've seen the 1 portal is gone, the 1 lightning storm is gone,
1
a devolve has gone, and a second devolve hitting this board isn't even really that big of a deal anyway. You're getting, what, a 5-drop and a 4-drop out of this alongside your 1 and 2.
You do very swiftly get to the point with Bloodlust that what the minions are doesn't make much difference. It's just the number of them on the board. Tarim, though, whew, it's going to be a problem. So, hang on. Is it going to be a problem?
6, 8, so just the Kodo with the Flame Tongue can deal with the Tarim here, and then there would be, what, 8, 10, 16 more going Fate. Is he 1 off again? Totem's going to go down here to the J-Claws most likely anyway as well, which will limit it even more. That might look like a really big high roll for Mage to hit the taunt in that position, but each individual 6-drop that you roll is 1 out of 6 to get a taunt minion.
It's actually pretty reasonable.
And that's not even including the possibility of Hogger, which can actually throw a taunt up at the end of your turn as well. So you get to roll a 1 in 6 3 times to hit a taunt minion off Doppelgangster Evolves.
Pretty reasonable.
Yep.
He's going to clear off the tome. So now a little bit short is Ant. Oh, is that Devolve?
Oh, buddy.
That's lethal if he devolves at no taunts.
So it'd be 8 plus 9. Yeah, already 17 without the Flame Tongue totem.
Do it. This is, for better or worse, the way I play is if this could be lethal, you get him.
3 5s and a 1. 5 is not that densely populated with taunts, and 1, of course, you're just looking at the fairly few obvious ones.
Going to save the day.
Goldshire Footman, Voidwalker, Shieldbearer, etc.
Okay, real question now.
Yes.
Your Ant, do you do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
we agree on this, because I definitely would.
Because even if you just whiff and hit the taunt minions, there's no
There
taunt.
it
The
is.
lethal is going to come through and makes the correct decision. Even if the lethal wasn't hit, you still deal damage to the board to be able to trade through again and then set up Bloodlust for the following turn. The Shaman mirror here is huge, especially because Ant had the slightly unfavored list going into it. He's picked up an unfavorable win there. And Mage's Shaman was actually one of his best decks at combating what Ant was trying to do with his lineup.
Yeah. Ant coming strong for Darwinian matchup going on there. A lot of evolution, of the evolution. But really, those are pretty just the key moments. And I think it could have gone terribly wrong with that Doppelgangster play. But genuinely, I think that was better than just passing that turn.
It's one of the things that I'd really like to hear some opinions on. It's definitely a big breakpoint in the series, so please do tweet at me if you have calls on whether that Maelstrom, whether that Doppelgangster, that term was correct. Because the interesting thing to me is that he clearly didn't do that because he was scared of the 1-drops coming down before Evolve, because he actually willingly played a 1-drop extra on the turn that he ended up evolving anyway. So it felt like a really 99+% won game at that point with how powerful your hand was.
Evolve and Devolve change things, though, as we saw.
They very much do, yeah. But the big story is Ant has a 1-0 lead, and he is very much on his way at this point. And there's a lot riding on this for Ant, honestly. We've learned a lot more about Ant, and he's really tugged at a few heartstrings as it's gone along in this position.
Yeah, 100%. Ant is in the lead, but Mage has taken down Colento in one of his matches at this event, and that has given him a lot of confidence. So let's hear more from him.
I just feel really good to beat Colento. It was one of my goals.
One of the greatest to ever do it. They call him K-God. Please welcome Colento.
I never actually thought about actually coming to a huge tournament, beating Colento. It's like one of my big accomplishments. I didn't play that well, honestly. I made a major mistake in the first game.
That was a mistake.
I was a little bit upset about myself. But after that, from game 2 on, I just recovered. And I just laughed about it, laughed it off, shake it off. It didn't really affect that much after that.
What a performance. That is one of the most unbelievable amount of foresights that I've ever seen in a match of Hearthstone.
He seemed pretty upset after the loss. Afterwards, we went to dinner and we were good. We didn't really talk much about the game, but we went to dinner and had fun. I am inspired by Colento. I learned a lot from his streams. For someone at home just casually playing Hearthstone, they could just be like me and watch good players play and just think one day, I've learned enough and maybe I can beat this guy and make it to the World Championships.
A Darwinian matchup indeed, as you said earlier, but I think what the interesting thing to me is we've been watching the evolution of Mage happen before our own very eyes. He started off coming in as a relative unknown to most people into the playoff system for the APAC region. I think over time, we've seen him start to fill the role of a feared competitor in his own right, but still such a humble attitude going in there. He said, I'm still learning from these guys. I watched Colento's stream. You know, hopefully one day I can get on their level, and beating Colento is a huge achievement for me. Trust me, Mage. You need to look yourself in the mirror and realize you are on these guys' level now.
Pretty good.
You are a guy that others should be trying to aspire to beat at this point.
Yeah, definitely is a, you know, comes across more as very much a control specialist as well. And just see that, Mage just staring at, look at this.
Oh, the Pavel glare.
He's getting paveled.
The stance of a world champion, Raven.
Pretty much, and you know what? That genuinely, small things like this, Ant is not even looking at him.
Go on, just give a little cheeky glimpse.
Well, I
just
think
top
this
of the
is
eyes,
key.
cheeky glimpse.
I think this is key.
Right.
Ant knows he's looking at him right now.
Yes.
100%, he is aware he's being stared at, and Mage is just going for it. And fair play, I don't know how Mage is not just cracking a smile, because I would struggle to just like, maybe I'm too nice a guy, but I would struggle to like try and like evil stare someone for that long. Look, he's still holding it.
Stone cold killer. Look at this man.
This, I mean, look, these players, this moment and this match has been the result of months of work qualifying for playoffs.
Yes.
Then battling through the hardest Swiss they'll probably ever have to battle through, which is, you know, top approximately 64 players in each player's region. Then you get here, then you have to get through groups.
Then you have to get through Colento.
Then you have to get through Colento. And then, finally, one of these guys is going to get that spot at the World Championships. Months of hard work, months of pressure, and it's all come down to this.
Control Paladin coming out from Mage, and this is still a deck that divides opinion. Some people, they love to bring it to tournaments because they say it's favored against all of these aggro decks that people throw out. Some people say it just can't win.
Some people just like Murlocs more.
Also true. Sorry, what?
You heard.
Can you do your impression of the Tidal Hand guy, please?
The Tidal Hand?
Yeah. That's what the transformed Paladin hero power is called. It's called the Tidal Hand.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not confident on that one, to be honest, so.
Thank you.
It's really good. It's one of my better impressions, actually.
It's the name of the actual button. Like the minion is named something different, but it's the name of the button.
Silverhand Murloc is the minion.
Yeah, but I said it's the name of the transformed hero
I thought you meant the
power.
minion was Tidal. Like, do your impression of Tidal Hand, I was like, click. it's like I don't really know how that impression works. You want me to become a 2-mana ability. But Ant here, and this is what I'll talk about. This Paladin Mage played exceptionally well the other day.
Yes.
Is Ant going to give him the time to do funky stuff? Because this aggressive secret mage could just kill him if it lines up correctly for Ant.
He hasn't done that well, though. He just had to coin out a Kirin Tor mage with no activation on a secret just so he could tempo out his Mana Worm to trade with a Wild Pyromancer. That is not an exchange in which Ant has come out ahead. Yes, he now has a 4-3 on the board, which he can use to challenge Stonehill Defender. That would have been one of the further points that convinced him to do that instead of Arcane Intellect. But the True Silver is there to clean that up after from Mage. So I think the early skirmish is actually working out in favor of Mage as the Paladin player in this matchup.
Yeah, the problem is, though, Mage is almost at a point against Ant where he's playing with 28 cards. Because if Spellbender comes down, which is in Ant's deck, Spike-Ridge Steed is no longer a card. Which is kind of rough because Spike-Ridge Steed, it really helps you get there a lot of the times.
Yeah, there are a couple of tricks you can make. Firstly, you can be running Ivory Knight, which can then pick you up a Hammer of Wrath or a Humility, Blessing of Might, any kind of thing. Mage is not, though. There are no Ivory Knights in his list. So the one remaining trick you have up your sleeve is when you sense Spellbender is down, you have a turn where you spend all your mana, and then you Forbidden Healing for 0 on something.
Sure,
and just use that to break the Spellbender.
Yeah, Mage is running Forbidden Healing, actually.
Yeah, he's used one copy.
Excuse me.
I do like this play as well. There was just an Arcane Intellect, but suddenly that Mana Worm changes a lot because this board is not weak to Consecrate going into it.
It's pretty weak into True Silver over a couple of turns combined with a Consecration, though. But it does get to push a good chunk of damage in the meantime.
And I think a lot of the time, one of the skills you actually learn, I think mid to late in the Hearthstone skill set, is to actually play your game to the hand that you have. right? Because a lot of the time, you know, newer players will go, this is what this deck plays like. I will try and do this every single game.
I see.
But with 2 fireballs in hand, any early damage you get suddenly adds up to, do I just get in? You know, suddenly fireballs, it'll be silly to use them as trading. I know it's an aggressive deck, but sometimes you need to fireball a minion. But with this play, with another minion draw now, is this just going to be, I'm just going to chip, 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 double fireball dead? Could be the plan. It's something we saw a lot yesterday from Ant, but Ant was also playing Treads Red, who had an aggro lineup himself. So it's a lot easier to do when most of the decks have damage permanence.
Arcanologist the plane. Did give him something to do that turn. Otherwise, I think we would have learned a lot more about whether Ant was sharing your philosophy. If he didn't draw something, say he pulled Firelands Portal off the top, right? And he's looking at Arcane Intellect Fireball with a Mana Worm in play and 4 mana. We would have got a very clear message about what his plan was, because Fireball to the Dome was a viable play if he didn't pick up anything to do there, but the Arcanologist pickup kind of made it a lot more simple, right?
It made it a lot more simple, and I think as well, even not necessarily, if you want to go face, not necessarily, you can have 1 turn for the Arcane Intellect. You still buff the Mana Worm by 1.
You do lose a little bit of mana efficiency by doing it that
way.
way.
Yeah. But I think like maybe 1 turn to just fill up the hand, see what it looks like, then go, because suddenly you have enough cards to get to turn 8, to turn 9, and potentially end the game.
Right, I mean, when I said Firelands Portal, I chose that example very deliberately,
exactly.
right? Because it was a card he couldn't play, but it was also extra damage in a couple of turns time.
Exactly, yeah. Now the Taunt from the Stonehill, Tauren dude, coming down. It's a 2/3.
Tauren dude.
It's just like the Murloc thing. I think that's the ability of playing the Tauren.
Ah.
Second secret though, so suddenly the burn.
What was that noise?
I'm just full of the noises today. Suddenly, you know, like the burn plan looked ropey with that draw, but now Arcane Intellect into Firelands, into another Arcane Intellect. Maybe you can just get there.
The lack of pressure, though, is not looking pretty at this point, because at any point, Mage can just choose to consecrate away this board. With Loot Hoarder this turn, doesn't even look that unappealing, because you're getting into the periods of the game where, for Mage, you're expecting to see Cabal Crystal Runner, you're expecting to see 5-drop of Firelands Portal, so Consecration on its own is kind of losing its efficacy as a standalone card. It's going to need to be paired with a quality from here on out. So maybe this is the last chance you get to just have an effective Consecration and swing the board state back. Mage definitely agrees.
Yeah, I like it actually. Just like you said, it opens up the plan, even just draws you a card next turn, like why not? If your opponent pings, well that's 2 mana. You're okay with that actually a lot of the time. Oh, but Sorcerer's Apprentice gives Ant windows to do silly, silly things. And I do believe we are going to see one of the secrets this turn. Oh my god, which one? Oh, he went for the ping.
Ping, yeah.
Okay. So he wanted to guard the Sorcerer's Apprentice after seeing the Consecrate, which is completely reasonable.
The menagerie is
So now he's just going to get as much instant value if it was killed off somehow with maybe a second True Silver.
Oh, Primordial Drake, of course, picked up off the Curator.
Okay, now you drop Mirror Entity. 100%.
Yeah, I want to rewind very quickly to that last turn. He wanted to protect himself from Spike Ridge Steed, hitting the board, of course, with the minion in play and it being past 6 mana in the game, which is one of the reasons why you would choose to ping. He had 2 mana available, could have played Counterspell as well. That would have theoretically blocked the Spike Ridge Steed as well, but he knows there's a 1 mana secret in hand from the Hydrologist, but he drew Spellbender off the Arcane Intellect, which could have then changed his play. Still chose to go with the ping, which was just a little bit slow.
Yeah, and this is one of the means where you use Fireball to actually clear off the minion. We see Ant using the Mirror Entity into this Curator. Let's, this is a high-stakes match, as we've talked about. Everything is all on the line here. We can hear from Mage on what he thinks about nerves.
Playing in front of all these people, you can never tell if you're going to be nervous or not until you step foot on the stage, right? Maybe I'll do fine, maybe I'll be nervous, but either way, even if I'm nervous, I'll control myself. I won't play bad, that's what I'll say. Maybe I'll become nervous, but I won't play bad.
I like it. I like it yet again. We get a lot of flack when we talk about the pressure of high-stakes situation and players being nervous. All the pro community comes back and says, oh, you're making that up. It never happens. We've got one player here who said that he was actually going to vom. He was that nervous about the game.
Gonna vom.
And then we've got his counterpart who says, you know, I'll probably get a bit nervous, but I'm not going to play badly, and then made a very, very visible mistake on day one where he just lost track of what was happening due to the pressure of the situation.
Yeah, and let's just recap what we heard from Mage there. The counterspell was tested for with the secret. Then Doomsayer came down to mimic onto Ant's side of the board. So when Ant starts his turn, Doomsayer will clear the board, but Mage is saying, I'll just use my value cards, get better cards in hand. Yeah, I lose the minions, but so what?
Yep.
But Ant, yeah, he had minions, but definitely not the end of the world here to actually just reset the board. Now he can go for a different play. Just go for Violent Space, and not bad, 7 of Yogg-Saron. Now this is, I mean, look at the hand. So we'll talk about counterspell to stop a potential forbidden healing.
Mage does
Violence
not,
ball.
sorry to interrupt you, but Mage does not drop the getaway Kodo on his Primordial Drake. Of course, there are some really high-value targets.
Yeah, I also think, though, that he wants something to proc another counterspell with, because if he draws Forbidden Healing, he's going to need to be able to cast it.
Absolutely. It was the point I was leading to. He does.
Sorry.
He is going to...
Stop your point.
I interrupted you in the first place, so one good interruption, Raven, deserves another.
Well, there we go. Evened it up. Carry on.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
The interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow, there we go. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but for the sake of the broadcast, I went for it.
Thanks for playing along, buddy.
And got mooed at. We talked about mooing yesterday, weren't we?
Were we?
Was it me and Rob? Maybe me and Rob were just talking about Torrent.
I'm glad you had a lot of fun without me yesterday.
It was a lot of fun. Short but sweet.
Much like Rob.
Yes. Ugh, I hope he's listening. Yeah, now let's get back to the game. Let's get a little bit serious.
Good plan.
It's weird for me to reel this one in. But Ant does have a lot of damage available. On comes the Spellbender. Gonna activate Medu's Valet, and this is the point. You hit a marker where you're like, you know what?
Face.
Fireball, Violence Portal.
Yep.
And what's kind of nice is, does Mage have to do a tester? The secret. Does he have to play the secret to try and proc a counterspell? Because it might be.
It's actually very, very likely
you know
to be,
what
the
I
way
mean?
it's
Like,
broken down. Ant's list to start with has the one Spellbender, the one Mirror Entity, and the 2 counterspells remaining. So it's just a very high percentage that this is counterspell that he's staring at right now. And still no Forbidden Healing in sight to pull him out of this. There's already a Firelands Portal and a Fireball in hand, you know, totaling 11 damage plus a ping. So Ant has this set up nicely for himself over a couple of turns here.
Ant's also, depending on the next draw, it's exactly what I was going to say! Molten Reflection combined with Pyros is one of the few good cards he can mimic.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, God, sometimes you just call it right. I was literally about to talk.
You didn't get there, though. You
No,
didn't get there.
I was. Oh, of course, that's what I was aiming for.
Sure.
You saw how quick my response was to the draw.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pyros Molten Reflection means that, yeah, Ant's not going to win the late game against us off Paladin, but can do, you know, put threats onto the board and have stuff to do if he runs out of damage. If there is a Forbidden Healing coming down, he can have pretty much infinite, like, minions with double Pyros on the board.
So now the game has become very linear. Ant is setting up his 2-turn lethal. Mage needs to draw healing here. He needs one true silver champion, which is all he plays in the deck, the Ragnaros Light Lord, or the copy of Forbidden Healing that he does have the getaway Kodo. And yes, that nudge into the Mogushan Warden reduces the chances of Ragnaros Light Lord if it was in hand being able to heal the face, but it is not, and that means Firelands Portal will end the game. Quick nod further to Ant's, how perfect Ant's play was on that turn. If you lead with Firelands Portal, you can get Corrupted Healbot, which then allows your opponent to heal out of range. He did everything he possibly could to increase his percentage chance of winning, and this is a man being rewarded for good play.
Yeah, 100%. Ant is aggressively assaulting Mage here with this lineup, going 2-0 up with this aggro deck, and like I said, Mage isn't really getting the time to do anything, you know, like anything super high level, anything tricky. Doesn't have to play the late game. Doesn't have to manage his resources, which we saw in the Paladin game yesterday, which he's extremely good at. And it's just not giving him the time.
It's true. And that particular matchup was an interesting dynamic to me because from my personal stance and from my own single low sample size empirical results with trying the decks out, N'Zoth Paladin and Secret Mage are two of the decks that I trust the least that are played in high-level tournaments, like played in these competitive environments. I just don't think those decks are particularly competitive, and we had to see one of them win there in that situation. It was Secret Mage that ended up doing the job, but Ant now one game away from the achievement of his career, and we've learned a lot about how important this is to him.
Yeah, 100%. And could be at the World Championships and could potentially become the world champion himself. So in case you don't know much about Ant, in case you've not been following too much the past few days, you can check this out to find out more.
I'm Ant. I don't like to add stuff to my name. I don't know. I can't be more than me, I guess, right? I was born and raised in Fresno. I went to high school here. There is trouble with like gangs and stuff. I usually try to keep myself out of it. I'm like a super positive person. I feel like it comes from my dad. My dad always told me to be like a positive person.
I think he was very close to his dad. My husband passed 8 years ago. It was a big impact for him. He don't like to say anything about his feelings, but I'm pretty sure he take it very hard.
I have seen things that were like, you know, being surrounded by drugs or people that I've seen in school die. Like, it's kind of hard to think about, like having my dad die. I think at the same time, it's not like all of the easiest worlds to see. Video games, they help you get away from the kind of bad stuff that's out there. You kind of build a community where you can have friends and just have a place to go where you know you're safe and you can actually have some fun. I think when Hearthstone came along was probably, you know, not the greatest part of my life. The first time I saw Hearthstone, I was playing Magic at the time, so I was like, oh, what is this? It can never be competitive. Because they told me about the whole ladder system. They rank you, it's all the best players in the world is how they put it. So I mean, it sounded kind of cool. It just looked really fun. He just like dragged his arrow, pointed at his opponent's face, and they blew up sometimes. It was great.
I never thought that he was gonna make any money on video games. So I'm very surprised now that he's one of the top 4 in America.
I still want to say, like, it hasn't really hit me, right? Like, I'm going to China to play video games? I'm going to China. That's what we were saying when I qualified. Like, all my friends are like, you're going to China, dog. You're going to China.
When he first told me that he was gonna go to Shanghai, I was scared. It's like my big boy. My big boy. And always try your best to beat everybody.
I think video games helped me in my life.
I want something good for him because he's a very, very good person. I admire him a lot.
What's the first thing you can do when you get to China?
Try not to get lost. Yeah. I don't know. This whole esports career that I've transitioned to, it just like makes me so happy that this is even a possibility. It feels really great to like know that you're good at something. If I do well at this tournament, I get to go to the Worlds, which is pretty nuts as well.
And could be going to Worlds if he wins one more game against Mage. He's 2-0 up. Mage has got everything to fight for and everything on the line for both of these players. I'm actually feeling tense casting it. Imagine how the players feel.
What a validation it would be for Ant to get through after we saw how much it means for him there as an escape from some of the things he wanted to forget about. As you see the remainder of the players are going to go through. Colento just taking some chill time. RDU looking calm and confident as always. And Hoy, job done already for that adorable little man who, by the way, I am extremely happy for. We've known him since, what, early 2015, Gfinity, something like that. You saw as soon as he booked his win how much of an outpouring from the pro community there was on Twitter as well. Super popular guy, impossible to dislike, very, very much deserved. But I was a little bit fearful of the first time I had to open my mouth after we saw that piece, because there is a genuine little lump in my throat right now from watching that. Clearly, one of the most emotional guys that we've seen in any of these events, very willing to, you know, talk about how much this all means to him, and that's beautiful to see, and I'm sure no one would begrudge Ant booking his spot here, but in his way, even though he's 2/3 of the way there, in his way is the vanquisher of Colento, Mage himself.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Ant and Mage have actually gained a lot of fans from everyone who've watched them. They're two of the names that are not the most prolific, you know, not the most well-known in the Hearthstone scene, in the competitive scene, to the, you know, the average viewer, so to speak. I'm pretty sure they've got a hell of a lot of fans now as we move into what could be the last game of this series. And the last game, Mage is running this competition.
And by the way, you know, you mentioned he's gained a lot of fans. He's also made a lot of friends because he's just one of the most sociable guys I've ever seen. We had a running joke for the first couple of days. We felt like Ant was the only player here because wherever we looked, we didn't see any of the other players, but Ant was just always there, just hanging out.
Yeah, it was awesome. We went for dinner a few times, always just hang out around the hotel and going out in China. It's been a lot of fun, but now fun can wait. It's all business. And on the aggro, Druid. Mage on this Shaman again. Mage with the Shaman has a pretty good matchup. Devolve can run riot against the Druid.
Can.
Mainly because of buffs.
Yep.
And for living mana.
And just as an emergency answer to Vicious Fledgling as well, can be very, very important.
I would take any 2-drop in the game over Vicious Fledgling at this point.
It's just a glass box with a picture of a ridiculous pink bird, break glass in case of emergency, and there's just a Devolve inside.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Now the Doppelgangster Evolve is in the hand for Mage. He obviously has to get there.
He does.
But if he does, probably puts him in a very strong position. There's not a lot in Druid that can go toe-to-toe with 6 drops.
One of the classic Raven understatements. Doppelgangster Evolve would put him in a pretty decent position.
It depends what the board state looks like, right?
It does.
There's 2
I was
on the
actually
board.
about to bring this up, the possibility of just evolving early, because to break down your statement, if he gets to a position where he can comfortably Doppelgangster Evolve.
Yeah, I never said comfortably.
Right, no, but I'm elaborating. I understood what you meant, but if he gets to a position where he can do it comfortably, the game's won. Doesn't matter, right? You can just play the 5/2/2s and the game's kind of won equally as much. The 3/2/2s, sorry. But it's the fight for board control in the early game that's going to define, and that's often where Evolve is better used in this matchup, just to make a nice chunky board presence in the early game. Kindly Grandmother is a fantastic drop off the 2 slot, by the way.
It is definitely one of the better ones. Able to just trade off, especially a Flame Tongue though. Flame Tongue is drawn, then Grandmother is actually just a god. No, we're just going to be hero power this turn. Tom's not going to be too bad though. It's definitely just in the way of Ant, and Ant with a very slow start now. You know, Power of the Wild into Tar Creeper is not exactly the reason you play aggro Druid.
I think you pop the Grandmother this turn. I don't see too much downside to doing it. It sets you up for a really nice Jade Lightning draw on the following turn, so you then have a 3/2 that can push past the Tar Creeper in that world. Just don't see the real harm in throwing it in, but Mage disagrees. He obviously has a plan here. There is a single copy of Swipe in Ant's deck that is a consideration in this spot as well.
Yeah, there is actually, yeah. Normally the 1 swipe can be used for reach to actually just finish off an opponent if the board state's not there for you. But also just in these battles of just like bitty minions trying to just like, you know, scrap for the board, swipe can be the breaking point a lot of the time. Now it's going to be... Ant has a bit of a puzzle to work out here. Exactly how he wants this hand to come together. Bitter Tide Hydra next turn is open just on curve. There's like Fledgling, Innovate, Power of the Wild, all doesn't quite mesh that well. It's going to be a bit of a puzzle to unlock here for Ant.
Yeah, just to rewind time a little bit again, he chose not to Innovate the Hydra on turn 3. He chose just to drop Tar Creeper instead, just to kind of wall some of this board state out. Bitter Tide Hydra in that position, although you kind of feel like you always want to innovate it when it's available, it was dealing with a board state where you haven't got enough aggression to be going face in the first place, and you don't want to be using a Bitter Tide Hydra to be cleaning up Taunt Totems and Kindly Grandmothers, right? That's
quite what the card's for.
That's just not an exchange that works out in your favor. So I was just leading into this as well, just looking at how awkward this hand just kind of interacts with each other. It looked just like a 3-2 and go turn to me, and that's what ended up settling in Ant's mind as well. But now Mage with the J-Claws draw, I can say there's perhaps a little bit of a punish for not developing the extra power on board last turn by trading in the Kindly Grandmother, because now he doesn't get to answer this board state quite as comfortably as he would have done.
Does have to just go everything in anyway. Takes the 3 damage from the swing from the Tar Creeper. Definitely not the end of the world, though, because as long as he has board, he's going to be feeling very, very confident.
Yep.
And now, the issue from positions like this.
Ooh, baby.
Teamwork. I'll finish my thought for a second. The issue for positions like this is, as you're saying, like Hydra, even though it's a lot of damage, it's only one attack a turn, right? You know, like it can only hit once. So
yes,
dealing with a wide board
of attacking.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So it's like it's such a pain that if you don't go face, you're wasting so much.
Yep.
But you can't afford to.
Yep.
So it's definitely awkward. But this swipe does change a hell of a lot. It's going to allow Ant to really battle back for this board now. It's going to.
Very close call again, I think, because he had the option to front load the Hydra in that spot, and then because he had the swipe backing up in hand, he didn't necessarily then have to use the Hydra as a trading tool because he could have swiped away as his trade device on the following turn and then tried to push more damage. The fact he's able to develop a big threat anyway in the form of the Vicious Fledgling is probably what convinced him to do it this way around. Try and back this up with the Bittertide Hydra later. But the Bloodsail Corsair and no patches available here. Savage Raw time to get this to connect to face?
That's what I was just like. Is Savage Raw worth more than Bittertide Hydra though?
I don't think so.
Not with a one drop to fill out the curve.
Think
yeah.
so.
I was looking at it, but the fact you can go Hydra Firefly this turn and then Savage Raw.
How huge is that totem though, by the way?
Potentially, maybe not game winning, but game stabilizing at this point. It's Light Well just plucking away, doing its job.
So now, let's recap what's happened in this game, because now we've hit turn 6. Now we've hit the turn where Doppelgangster and Evolve would have come down. But let's rewind and say the Evolve wasn't used early on. It was held in hand by until now. Mage is already a long way behind on this board, and he went for extra board presence early with the Evolve anyway. Imagine how far behind he would be, and he'd then just be going Doppelgangster Evolve into a board that probably just kills him at that point.
Savage Raw as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, probably stands it. Mage did go for the Devolve, go trade onto the Wisp, and now it's just the Pterodax.
Which means Living Mana is now very much live again for Ant, because Devolve hitting Living Mana is one of the most back-breaking interactions in this entire matchup. So now Devolve was had to be used just to significantly lower the stats on an 8-8, which almost certainly looked like the right play in that position. Does mean that a Living Mana draw from Ant at any given point now will be huge.
Also as well, this Druid of the Claw. Just play as Taunt. I could probably just play as Charge, to be honest. You've just seen it evolve. Yeah, there's just probably not.
I like stats mode, yeah.
Yeah, Taunt was my first thought, but there's probably just not a Jade Lightning either, because it would have been used by now, I think.
It would have been used on the Tar Creeper for sure. It would have been used on the Fledgling for sure. It would have been a good play to be able to deal with the Bittertide Hydra as well.
Exactly. So it's just
a really clean read. There is no Jade Lightning in the hand.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
it's just unlikely this Druid of the Claw dies, and then you've got to think, okay, well, Savage Raw, what's that? Like 12,
so
14, 16?
I mean, look at it this way, right? If you go stats mode and put the Taunt down in play, yes, your argument that you charge face and then the Druid of the Claw doesn't die. Well, this way, the Druid of the Claw still doesn't die, but neither do the 2 minions that you've then protected behind the Druid of the Claw. So over the course of 2 turns, with Savage Raw in your hand already, you are netting damage by actually dealing less damage on 1 turn.
Yeah, and now with Mark of the Lotus and the Flame Elemental, this board is nearly as wide as Mage is. And again, full trade for me if I am Ant.
Are you confident about that? That face looks very tempting right now.
I agree. It sets up like lethal for next turn, but I would just worry about Bloodlust.
Holding hands in front of my face, trying to ignore the fact that there are 2 Bloodlust in Mage's hand and trying to figure out genuinely, sight unseen, and a game on ladder, what would I do?
Well, my worry is, instead of this sets up lethal, this is Ant's game-winning play into Worlds, right?
Yes.
Well, how does he die in this game? Which looks, he's looking pretty great. How does he die? He dies due to a Bloodlust with a full board of minions.
Sure.
So I don't mind this from Ant, the trades. I genuinely don't. I think it's fine.
It comes back to the age-old question, which is, what style of play does a Hearthstone player default to when they're put in a high-pressure situation and the call is very close? People often ask the question, do you consider yourself an aggressive player, a safe player, a risky player? A lot of players will snap answer, there's no style, I just make the highest percentage play each turn. But it's moments like that that can really define like what your preference as a player is.
Yeah, they test you. And honestly, if you know, again, a lot of players talk about just, you know, the highest stat play. But when you're one game away from going to Worlds, mentality comes into it. Style comes into it. Natural preferences come into it. And these are just who can draw the best dead draws in the game. Any minion will break things.
Oh my God. Are there any worse draws for either of these players than what we've seen on the last couple of turns? Mage hit an Evolve, which even though there was one remaining Doppelgangster on his board, just wasn't a viable option. It was just air. Then Ant wanting to just re-establish with the Savage Roar in his hand.
And just laughs. He's just, Mage just give like a bit of a smile and nod as the hero power pass happened.
Flame Tongue is dead for now as well. It's utility for later, but it's not development. Right, this is one of the slowest paced aggro draws I have ever seen from both players, but the Bittertide Hydra creates fireworks now with Mark of Yasharaj pulling up an additional card. It's just a hungry crab though, not too exciting.
Still better than the past 3 draws. So Devolve almost certainly going to come down from Mage here.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
And both players just said, you know, should we just chill for a few turns? Just agree to chill?
Yeah.
And then we'll carry on when we've had a break.
They just looked across the desk and was like, actually, this is pretty high pressure. Should we just sit back for a moment, just gather our thoughts?
Yeah. So let's have a 2-turn chill.
Gentleman's pact.
Earth Elemental.
I love listening to this crowd react to draws and discover effects. And
I'd love it as well if they're really excited over Senjin Shield.
Well,
Senjin!
I think in Hoy's game, like someone just drew like Firefly, and the crowd were like, "Ooh, Firefly!"
It's a good card.
Devolve, the
Devolve onto a 1/4 as a 4-drop is not something you're gonna write home about. Let's be honest. How can Ant ever get through this Earth Elemental?
Hey, Mum. Miss you a lot. Got devolved into a midnight train today.
Feels bad, man.
Yeah. Love, Ant.
Maybe. That one turn might be it.
That was huge. I mean, it was a huge turn no matter what happened, right? Devolve was going to take 4-4-ish of stats off the Bittertide Hydra, and then you were going to drop your own 7-8. But the difference between a 5 attack or 4 attack 4-drop here that could trade through this Earth Elemental directly, combined with Savage Roar and your face attack as well, and this just miserable 1/4 that does absolutely nothing against this board state. Look at that, it doesn't even kill the Stonehill defender.
Well, what's really bad about not killing the Stonehill defender is that Stonehill is going to be able to farm this Flappy Bird with the help of the Flame Tongue, of course.
This one looks like it's coming up Mage. Step 1 of the comeback is looking very, very real.
I'm going to say 2 words to you, though. Do you know what they are?
Living Mana. Yes.
One card that could help Ant get back in this game, but that Devolve was so huge. And now Mage focus mode. He's just like, okay, there's my opening. Let's finish this up, because Mage cannot afford to lose a single game anymore. He's on match point constantly, or Ant is on match point, should I say, and Mage has to just continually win to get this down. Bloodset Corsair, especially with the patches draw early on, is not really what you're after. It's a 1-mana 1/2 against a board. There you go.
A board.
Yeah, just a board. The fact that there's just anything there means it's a bit of a problem.
So many decisions. This game is stretched out to such a late turn for an aggressive mirror. This can often happen when one of the aggressive decks involved is Shaman, because your fear of Flame Tongue Totem is just so absolute against Shaman that it kind of forces players into a trading resources advantage. The fear of Flame Tongue Totem and Bloodlust and Evolve, of course, now in this deck.
Well,
but
seems good.
if you want a game-ending play, this looks right up your alley.
Mage now just needs to look over at Ant and Mouth, get out.
You can just Doppelgangster here. You don't even have to Evolve.
Just get them with Bloodlust.
You still set up Lethal with Bloodlust.
And you don't have the...
Love it. Yes, hold. I think hold is correct in this position. You would have 21 damage from Bloodlust plus your board. Beautiful.
Yeah, really
beautiful from Mage. If you're wondering what happened there, he has 1-drops in play right now with the totems. Each one would be a 1 in 83 of hitting Doomsayer. That is a tiny percentage to lose the game that he did not have to take here, and he chose not to.
Yep, and with pretty much a full board, Bloodlust just becomes to the point where you don't even have to add it up. Mage is going to fight back versus Ant and take a game with this Evolved Shaman. Still going to go up against this Druid again. That Living Mana coming, I would say, a turn too late. Well, maybe 3 turns too late.
I mean, actually, if Ant had drawn it much earlier, I was about to say even 7 or 8 turns too late. But if it had drawn much earlier, it would have run into one of those devolves that we saw got used on the Bittertide Hydra. So after those were both used, there was a 1 in 8 and then a 1 in 7 and onwards, 1 in 8, 1 in 7.5, 1 in 7 draw of hitting that Living Mana. He just wasn't finding it for Ant. It was really, really unfortunate, but that was as bizarre an aggro mirror as you will ever see. Mage will be happy to have picked it up. The aggro Shaman, the Evolved Shaman, is favored in those kinds of matchups. It's one of the big reasons why it's the king of the aggro decks right now. The Quest Rogue and Control N'Zoth Paladin that are remaining, they are bigger question marks for me.
Yeah, definitely. There's although Ant lost the game, he is still quite easily in the running for this series. Mainly, I feel just because of that Quest Rogue can just get killed. You know, Quest Rogue against a lot of these aggro decks require the strong draw and to be able to pull off a win. And the second that doesn't happen, you know, the second there's a whiff, it could just be game there for Mage.
Well, specifically now that we're looking at aggro Druid, right? Like that is one of the most backbreaking ones against Quest Rogue, just because of how efficiently it can flood tokens with 2 or 3 health. Once you put 3 or 4 minions plus on board with 2 or 3 health, Quest Rogue don't have plays to deal with that outside of Prep Vanish. And Vanish is something that you want to reserve for Living Mana a lot of the time in the matchup. But so much pressure on these two players, but I haven't really noticed any signs of nerves, inferior plays. We've heard them both talk about the nerves factor, but they both seem to be conquering it. So we're watching a really high-level series. You've heard me get excited about so many plays already. This is really, really peak Hearthstone right now.
Yeah, and this is only series number 2 of the day. By the end of the day, we're going to work out who is going to be the champion. So let's take a look at what's coming up later.
Greetings from Shanghai, my friends. Don't you stray too far away from that fire. There's more tales to tell. Coming up from China, Cornet and Nyria.
Here are those 2 players that are going to be coming up next after this series, Nyria versus Quonet. It's going to be a big one. Can Europe continue to get there, is my question.
Yeah, this is a win-win series for me, honestly. Nyria has some great stories in terms of his consistency and is, of course, the European representative. But Quonet, for me, is just a player that's made me very happy and made a new fan out of me. He's someone that I really resonate with. We like the same decks. He talked about how he put his life on hold to just give esports a shot for 2 years, which is a very similar decision that I had to make.
Same.
So I really resonate with this guy, and I'd be happy to see him going to the World Championships. As you see some of the sights and sounds of the venue here, plenty to do, lots of activities. I didn't see the puzzle. Is the puzzle done yet?
The puzzle is probably 3 pieces away. You know what? I'd still probably struggle to find it.
I need to see that last piece going in. I will feel incomplete as a man.
Official request from the caster desk. Can we get someone to just sit and record that puzzle?
If I miss that last piece being slotted home, I think I'm just going to have to stay here, take it all apart, and do it all over again just to get the satisfaction.
Okay, so we won't see Sol at any further events because he will just be in China. But I will say about this crowd, you know, even with no Chinese players left in the tournament, this is as full as it's been all weekend as well. The crowd are getting super hype. It does just extend to the back of the room. Yeah. Everyone is hyped for these matches, for this tournament, to find out who is going to be the champion and who is going to make it to Worlds. Could be Ant, could be Mage, still everything to play for to move into game number 4.
Yeah, Mage smartly leading out with the Control Paladin here, I think, just trying to maximize his time. This is the stronger matchup of the 2. But Innovate Bird, Coin Bird, on the wings of a ridiculous pink flappy avian, is Ant going to ride to the World Championships?
Yeah, throwing a casual mark of Yasharaj on top of that, because frankly, why not? This already looks like a nightmare for Mage. Second mark, why not? Let's double up on the best cards you can have in any given matchup. Players have nightmares about their opponents innovating out the bird.
Right.
And bird is the word for this game.
All right, let's slow our roll here just for a second. Let's do this properly. We attack with the bird first. We make our decision. Divine Shield looks like a great pickup here just for security, and then you reevaluate. Now it's looking very much like Coin Fledgling in this position. Rallying Blade.
Yes.
Yes.
Stealth might be an option just because of Rallying Blade, because there can be bump Rallying Blade, whereas if you stealth, there can't be.
Well, then
the second bird dies anyway, right? Sure, if you're
yeah.
playing the second bird. Yeah, sure. Sorry, I take my point back.
When the powers of two Flappy Birds combine, this Divine Shield is actually strictly better than stealth because of the way
completely
it
right.
works out.
Completely right. I was actually just looking at Mage's list just to see if he even ran it in his off list. But yeah, you're completely right. It's just open now. Stonehill's like, I mean, I'll go, but I can't promise much.
So Stonehill says, hold my beer, I've got this.
And then he goes, oh no, 2? Oh, and the marks. Because even the, this is insane because the one that doesn't get to attack base is buffed anyway.
Wind Fury.
Get him. Second shot. Health, stealth, divine shield. Divine shield again. These minions are not dying, and you know I joined the board as well, just for the fun.
Health, stealth, and soon to be wealth from Ant, as he is just riding on the back of these vicious fledglings. There is no answer. There is a pyromancer, but there is no equality, and there's a divine shield in the way. He smartly took the on-curve Stegodon, did Mage, to try and continue to block these birds connecting. But as you mentioned, these marks of Yasharaj are just chewing through these taunt minions.
Yeah, and guess what? That's another mark. Oh, wow. Never mind. Let's just get more chargement. Let's get charge minion and Savage roar this dude down. What a crazy game that looks like it's on the verge of Ant going to Worlds. There is nothing that Mage can do about this kind of opening. Here come more adapts. Why not? More divine shields. You will never get us. This has already got Wind Fury, so it's going to do at least another 5.
Yep.
Put Mage to 4. Mage is already touching the headset. He looks like he's about to just take it off. He said, okay, you got me. There's nothing he can do.
Plus attack or +1/+1 on that initial roll would have ended up being lethal this turn. But look at the board state! There is Divine Shield, untargetable, 6 damage, 5 damage, Wind Furied Flappy Birds. Your Pyro equality here can actually do some damage, but not a full clear, right?
Oh, you can clear. Because he can equality. Oh no, he won't go. Won't go for the
Forbidden
double
Healing
stick,
would
yeah.
use all of his mana, so it can't be used as the first proc. Vicious fledglings right when Ant needed it, and you cannot begrudge this man a draw like that in that position. We saw that video, we saw how much that means to him, and he will be thanking the heavens that he was given one of the most powerful draws of his life after witnessing exemplary play through the opening 4 games of that series. It was finally just the fate of the vicious fledglings that has carried Ant to the World Championships.
Yeah, he's going to be joining Hoy as the second player from the Spring Championships going up there to Worlds. And he is extremely, extremely happy. I mean, look, it's a mixture of relief, all this work, like I said earlier, months of work to get the points to playoffs, then battling through playoffs, then battling through an insanely difficult bracket here. There he is. He's going to be playing Hoy in the semi-finals, but I'm pretty sure both of those players are extremely happy at the outcome already.
Yeah, mission accomplished. Of course, they want to be the seasonal champion, but they came here with one intention in mind, and that was qualifying for Worlds. And honestly, 2 of the nicest, most likable, deserving human beings you will ever meet in the esports scene or the world as a whole have realized their dreams of going to the World Championships.
Yep, and we can hear from the potential future mayor of Fresno now as he is standing by with Ali on the stage.
All right, let's hear it for Ant! Wow, amazing, amazing. 再次恭喜 Ant 进入了我们的4强，同时也将进入明年的世纪总决赛。那他现在感觉如何呢？ So how are you feeling now? Describe your emotion, man.
I kind of want to throw up.
他有点想吐了，非常的紧张。All right. Okay, take it easy. All right. I just really want to know. I mean, the last game, like at the very beginning, you have 2 Flappy Birds. I mean, it's amazing. Like how you feel that moment. I want to know. 在最后一局比赛当中啊，他一上来就是这个就有2个3-3啊，3-3-3。我就拿到这种牌，我自己平时打天梯我都爽的要死，我不知道他心里面什么感觉。So what's your feeling?
At that moment, I was thinking in my head, like, come on, fledgling, Wind Fury, come on, give it to me.
嗨，在那一刻他就说，我觉得可以，没有问题 ，Come on, give it to me 哈。其实 Ant 的故事我觉得特别的励志。之前在小片里面介绍他呢，就是靠炉石改变了一生。他这是这辈子他第一次出国，第一次离开美国到国外来到中国。昨天我问他来到中国什么感受，他觉得特别棒，吃的特别好。然后到中国呢，喜欢吃鸡，然后一种特殊的鸡叫 Orange Chicken， 然后他说是一种中国食物，我说中国没有 Orange Chicken 哈。很明显被骗了，所以我想问一下他有没有吃到。So did you get your orange chicken?
It was orange beef.
Orange beef. Okay, so you changed it, but you love chicken, I guess in the end.
Oh, absolutely. He does love a good chicken.
All right, 他喜欢吃鸡。好，okay, so now you're going to the world finals. How are you feeling?
Does this really happen?
I cannot believe it, right? Okay, so again, I think I have to repeat that question. So, our pack, the mayor, rounding off the mayor, you're gonna still do that?
Oh, hell yeah.
All right, great. And if you do that, I'll take you to the orange chicken, right? 那么 Ant 呢，他也在之前的采访当中讲到啊，如果他这一次比赛能夺冠的话，他会回自己的家乡啊，加利福尼亚州的第5大城市去竞选他们市的市长啊，还说到做到的啊，我们恭喜一下他好吗？来。好 ，Alright， 好，最后 ，Alright， 好，最后一个问题，我们这后面的导演组特别想了解一下他自己现在有没有什么话想给他妈妈说啊？因为毕竟他现在让他的妈妈非常的骄傲。So obviously your mom is very proud of you now. I'm sure she's watching, although it's quite late in the U.S. You want to say anything to her?
I hope I made you proud. This is gonna be a nice payday, right?
Yeah, of course you get paid a lot. 他说：“妈妈，我希望你因为我而骄傲，毕竟我打比赛今天也赚了不少钱啊，特别实在的小伙子哈。Get something from here in China, right? Okay, everyone, let's hear it for Ant. 再次恭喜 Ant, right? 特别好的一个人，来 ，Thank you.
Absolutely awesome from Ant there. He's just such a lovable guy, and you can tell how much it means to him. He's almost barely got words to describe the feeling. He is going to Worlds, and let's not joke around, Worlds is the pinnacle of tournaments for Hearthstone players to go to. It does not get any better, any high level, and any more important than the World Championships.
Overwhelmed is the descriptor for me, for sure. He was lost for words. You could just see... You could see in his face and his body how much it meant to him, even if he wasn't able to express it at the moment. But if he keeps talking about throwing up, we're going to have like follow him around with a bucket the whole time. But what a story for the guy to really just realize his dream at this point. Hearthstone originally was just an escape for him, somewhere to just, funnel some positivity, really find some security and some good times. And the good times have just kept rolling. He is now going to the World Championships.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. Playing a full aggressive lineup and playing it very, very well from what we've seen from him. There is the usual thinking, oh, aggro, go face. No, it's not as simple as that, however much I wish it was. But there's just a lot of small things that make the biggest impact when you play the aggro decks, because you have a few turns, right? Your plan is you've got about 5 or 6 turns to really make a deciding point within any given game.
Right.
Those have to count. One slip up in those turns is absolutely brutal.
And also, just to note, I believe that's now the final APAC player that has gone down. So not going to increase their number of visitors to the World Championships. 1 European, 1 North American representative is going to make their way.
Yeah, and we can check out who is qualified for World